Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to my review of tonight's edition of Smackdown. And tonight's Smackdown was held from PNC Arena in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I gotta say, tonight's Smackdown, I thought it was a decent, solid show. Wasn't a perfect show by any means. I gotta say it was better than Raw last night, but overall it was a decent, solid show. And the show opened up with tonight with Samoa Joe coming out. He walks down. He takes out a ladder from under the ring. He goes in the ring, sets up the ladder, sets it up in the ring. He climbs up the ladder, and he retrieves the Money in the Bank briefcase. And Joe says after, Money in the Bank, he will be smiling, from if he wins the Money in the Bank briefcase. And he says, after Money in the Bank, he will unleash a campaign of anxiety and fear over SmackDown. And he says tonight he will prove to Daniel Bryan that there are things far worse, than retirement, because he was talking about, Daniel Bryan's wife, Brie Bella, and, their daughter Birdie, saying, Joe was saying, I'm gonna decimate Daniel Bryan, and he's gonna be home he's gonna be home for, when Money in the Bank is going on, meaning that Daniel Bryan isn't gonna move on and qualify for the Money in the Bank match. And he says after Money in the Bank, Daniel Bryan won't be, the same man. And so Daniel Bryan ends up coming out saying to Joe that his envision, if he's, Joe says anything else about, his wife or daughter, he will end up breaking Joe's leg. And Daniel Bryan goes, we could fight right now and have this match, because, Daniel Bryan won last week against Jeff Hardy, and he would take on Samoa Joe. Both of those meant to qualify for the Money in the Bank match. And Big Cass ends up coming out and says that Daniel Bryan should not have gotten a second chance at qualifying for Money in the Bank. It should have been him. It should have been Big Cass. And Big Cass says, he spoke to Paige, and the match between Daniel Bryan and Samoa Joe is not happening. And he goes on to say that Joe, he will take on, Big Cass will take on Joe for the final spot in the Money in the Bank ladder match when he is cleared. So Big Cass then reveals that he is actually cleared. And so he goes and he hits Samoa Joe with his crutch, which he's possibly going to hit Daniel Bryan, and Daniel Bryan got out of the way, and then Big Cass ended up hitting Joe with the crutch. Daniel Bryan goes after Big Cass. Big Cass ends up throwing Daniel Bryan into the ladder. Then he ends up hitting Joe and Daniel with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and pretty much that basically ended the segment. I thought it was a decent. Opening segment with Samoa Joe, and then Daniel Bryan and Big Cass. Then we saw Paige backstage. Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville approach her, and they say that Paige is making so many mistakes and opportunities as a SmackDown general manager. And Paige ends up saying to Mandy that Mandy will face Asuka tonight. So they have a match between Mandy Rose and Asuka tonight. And Renee Young then interviews Paige about Big Cass, about what Big Cass had to say, and Paige says Big Cass didn't speak for her, And she then ends up making a triple threat match tonight. It's going to be Samoa Joe versus Big Cass versus Daniel Bryan. The winner gets put in the Money in the Bank, the men's Money in the Bank match. So that was the backstage segment with Paige. Then we had the first match tonight with Shinsuke Nakamura versus Ty Dillinger. This was an okay match. Wasn't wasn't great or perfect, or I was considered good. But you had Nakamura in this match where whenever he was taking down Ty Dillinger, he ended up counting 1, 2, and then the referee didn't count because Nakamura wanted to do it, practically sending a message to AJ Styles for their last man standing match at Money in the Bank. And so Nakamura ends up winning the match. He ended up hitting the Kinshasa to Ty Dillinger to score the win. What was really funny in this match was Ty Dillinger was mocking Nakamura, when Nakamura goes with the whole "come on." So Ty Dillinger ended up mocking Nakamura, which that was funny. It was funny how Nakamura just started counting and the referee was just standing there not counting while Dillinger was down. So, and then you had after the match was over, Nakamura then ended up Kinshasa and Ty Dillinger, in the back of the neck. And then we just had Nakamura, just still do the the count in, just like in the last man standing match, 1, 2. It was funny with Nakamura. But yeah, that's Nakamura sending the message to AJ Styles. Oh, but overall, the match itself, Nakamura and Dillinger was okay. Wasn't perfect or great, or I would consider good. Then we had AJ Styles being interviewed, about Nakamura and the, heading to last man standing match, and what Nakamura thinks. What Styles thinks about the stipulation that Nakamura chose, which was the last man standing match. And Styles says, something inside of Nakamura snapped, and he thinks Nakamura is becoming dangerous. And he's, Styles goes on to say that he fights smarter and harder, than the guy who's bigger and stronger than him. And he goes on to say that Money in the Bank, the last man standing in the match between him and Nakamura will be Styles. So it was a little interview with Styles. Then we had it was a waste of time. This was a waste of time. It was a dance competition between Lana and Naomi, and you had Aiden English and Rusev out there, with Lana, and then Naomi came out. The Usos came out. So it was a waste of time with this dance off. Didn't really give a shit. Then during that we had Lana and Naomi. They ended up dancing together. They were hopping on one foot, and then you just had Lana then give a neck breaker to Naomi. Then an all-out brawl happened with the Usos and Aiden English and Rusev and Naomi and Lana. Lana ended up slapping Jimmy Uso. Then Naomi ended up retaliating and slapped Lana. And we just saw the Usos take out Aiden English and Rusev. And then Naomi ended up hitting Lana with the rear view, which is a move I don't like. I think it's a corny finisher for Naomi. I always thought that. But that's pretty much what happened. It was a waste of time. Then we had what I consider, my opinion, the best match of the night tonight. And it was a 6-man tag team match. It was the New Day versus Cesaro, Sheamus, and The Miz. Very entertaining 6-man tag. I'd say it's one of the best 6-man tag matches of this year. It was just very entertaining. It was back and forth between them. The crowd really enjoyed this match. They were really entertained by it. But the New Day ended up getting the win with Big E ended up hitting the big ending on Miz to score the win. So New Day wins the match. But it was the best match of the night, in my opinion. I really enjoyed it. It was a very entertaining match. Then we had Renee Young interviewing Gallows and Anderson, Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson, about them competing against the Bludgeon Brothers at Money in the Bank for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. And Anderson says, that they both that they are focused and they are hungry, and they will be the SmackDown Tag Team Champions. And they said, and Anderson says at Money in the Bank, they're going to beat the Bludgeon Brothers like a bunch of, and they were going to say nerds, but the Bludgeon Brothers interrupted them because we saw them on TV, and so the Bludgeon Brothers go, they cut in and they say, bodies will be liquefied. So that's basically them sending a message to Gallows and Anderson. So do I think Gallows and Anderson will have a chance against the Bludgeon Brothers? I will have to say no, because the Bludgeon Brothers, they built them up, and they're Harper and Rowan, they're very strong. They made them look. WWE is making them look strong as what they are. So, but hopefully one day Gallows and Anderson will be SmackDown Tag Team Champions, because I think they deserve it down the line. I think it's too early for Gallows and Anderson. But yeah, so that was that whole little interview with Gallows and Anderson. Then we had Asuka versus Mandy Rose. This match was pretty much meh, in my opinion. Before the match even started, you had Sonya Deville come down and attack Asuka from behind while Asuka was still doing her entrance. We had Carmella on commentary watching the match. Asuka ended up beating Mandy Rose with the Asuka lock. Mandy Rose ended up tapping out. So Asuka won the match. Then we had, after the match, Carmella gets in the ring. She, looks at Asuka, and then, Carmella ends up holding holding up the title, showing Asuka. So basically that's what happened after the match. But all in all, the match itself, it was meh between Asuka and Mandy Rose. Then we saw Charlotte and Becky were backstage. Charlotte says, she wants to grab the contract. She's having her own vision, when she grabs the contract, and she says, if she, it will be set for a WrestleMania rematch. And Becky says, this year nothing is going to stop her from winning the SmackDown Women's Championship. Charlotte says, she's going to win the Money in the Bank match, and Becky says, this is going to be her match. This is going to be Becky's match. So Paige ends up coming, and she likes this whole bickering back and forth between Charlotte and Becky. And Paige says to them, it's tea time. So that was pretty much the backstage segment with Charlotte and Becky. Then we saw Andrade Cien Almas. Sin Cara then approached him, and we find out that Sin Cara and Andrade, they knew each other from back in the day. Zelina Vega ends up coming and says to Sin Cara that Andrade doesn't know him, and she ends up going on to tell Sin Cara that Andrade is the future of SmackDown Live. And Andrade then said to Sin Cara something in Spanish. So pretty much that was basically what we saw of Andrade this week. Then we had Samoa Joe versus Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass in a triple threat match for Money in the Bank qualifying match. And this was a good main event. It was back and forth between them. Daniel Bryan, of course, you can't go wrong with him being in the match, and it being very entertaining because of him. And Joe did a decent, good job here in this match. Big Cass was okay in it, but Daniel Bryan was pretty much the one that everyone was cheering for in the match. Everybody, you could tell, wanted Daniel Bryan to win the match. But in the end, Daniel Bryan had the yes lock locked on to Big Cass. Joe ended up pulling him out, and so Daniel Bryan then ended up taking out Joe on the outside. And then we saw Daniel Bryan was pinning Big Cass. Joe ended up coming, locked in the Coquina clutch on Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan didn't tap. Daniel Bryan didn't tap out for the match. He was passed out in the Coquina clutch. So Samoa Joe ends up winning the match with the Coquina clutch on Daniel Bryan. So Joe is now entered into the men's Money in the Bank match. So, but after the match, you had Big Cass ended up laying down Daniel Bryan with a big boot to the face, and that ended SmackDown for tonight. But the match itself, it was a good main event. It was a very entertaining main event, mostly due to Daniel Bryan. And pretty much that was basically it for SmackDown tonight. So, yeah, so anyways, that's it for my review of tonight's edition of SmackDown. Thank you all for watching, and be sure to give this video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.